Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Karen Jackson, and my co host, Sandy Bansell, is not feeling very well today. So I will try my best to solo and our guest here is John Woodward, a friend of ours from the United States. Hello, John.
How are you doing, Karen?
I'm doing great. The sun is shining. It's cool weather. It's nice and dry. It's a beautiful day in Sweden.
I'm looking outside because in Texas here, it can change by the minute. So it was sunny yesterday. It's cloudy now. I think it may be sunny later. But right now it's not too bad. But it's in the 70s, so that's
Oh, that is good.
downright perfect for Texas.
That's
But
right.
that'll change, as you know, quickly.
Yes. Thunderstorms tomorrow and then 94 degrees the day after.
Yeah, we've had a couple of bad deals of tornadoes the last couple of
Mm.
weeks, at least once a week.
Ooh,
One that hit Salado a couple of weeks ago,
yeah.
about last week, and yeah, just
Yeah. That's scary. Yeah. My in-laws live in and around Cedar Valley.
okay.
So they attended that church that was kind of destroyed. Yeah. That was
But it's
really,
good now. It's good
yeah,
now, and
that's good.
all in all, there wasn't a lot of any fatalities, so we're blessed by that.
Yes. Yes. Thankful. Thankful.
Yeah.
So, John, we've known each other for a few years, and
Mhm.
I noticed on Twitter that you are participating in a podcast, and I wanted to ask you how that started. Is that related to work, or is that something that you wanted to do, or why the podcast and what's it called?
It's called On the DL, and it started through work. I'm a digital learning coach with Temple ISD, and just kind of been listening to podcasts and seen, how relevant and viable they were, and wanted to do it. Really had no experience in doing it, and just kind of did some research, went to a few sessions at TCEA on it, and um, just kind of started from scratch, with the purpose of mainly interviewing and talking to people about you know topics relevant to education, uh, while at the same time learning about how to do a podcast and becoming more proficient at the craft, if you will.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so we're basically this is the third year. Originally, I called it the Blender because I was going to focus more on blended learning, and it wasn't any problem with the title. I think it was narrowing it down too much, where I felt the focus was not going to be what I wanted and what we
Hmm.
needed to be relevant to teachers in our district and people around the world who would listen to the podcast. And
Yeah.
so we changed it up. It On the DL references, it's a little play on our digital learning department, but it's also On the DL is kind of a discrete, reference to a discrete conversation between people.
Yeah.
And so it just seems to have fit, and it's been a lot of fun learning. Talk about lifelong learner. I don't think I'll stop learning, because every time
Hmm.
I do a podcast, I learn something that helps me be better the next time.
Right. Absolutely. How do you decide who you want on the podcast?
It's very scientific. I go with my gut. I'll be completely honest. I keep my why in the forefront,
Mm.
in the sense of, why am I doing this podcast? And I say that because I would never want to uh, interview somebody. They may be a great interview, but if it's not relevant to what the podcast is about and why I'm doing the podcast in the first place, then it's really not achieving. As much as it would be a cool interview, to
Yeah.
talk to somebody, if it's not talking to someone that's relevant in the world of education, which is what my podcast is about, then it's really not doing what, I need to do another podcast if I
Yeah.
want to start that. So I try to find somebody that's relevant to the topic of education, people that I may not know the people as well as others, but I know it's going to be relevant to other people. And that can be people that are authors, keynote speakers, but also people within our district. So I've kind of mixed it up.
Yeah.
I have people such as Jim Knight, and I'll be talking to Catlin Tucker, that are very relevant because people know them as they're learning different things in our district through professional development, but also talking to various stakeholders within the district. I'm going to be talking to the director of transportation, director of
Oh,
special
cool.
ed, bilingual, etc. So I try to mix it up to talk to people that are interesting, that are outside of our little world, but also
Right.
people that are in our world that they see all the time, but may not know some things about.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's a good way to introduce those two worlds together. It always interests me when I like to think of my worlds collide. Like if I know someone from my childhood who's met someone or who knows someone I work with, and I get to see that interaction, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think you find it is a small world, and I'm just scratching the surface at that. I think it would be cool and very interesting to. I've talked to some people over in England, and to do more of that, because I think it's helpful for people in smaller Temple, Texas, to see that we're not that different from other people in a Sweden or in England.
Yeah,
And so I'm
absolutely.
looking forward to pushing myself in those areas to find guests that really show that our world is not as small as it seems sometimes.
That's right. That's right. It kind of gives you hope that
It really does.
the world is a bigger place, and I so agree. And then speaking of England, you told me you had a message for Sandy.
I did. I wanted to wish Sandy a happy St. George's Day, which is every April 23rd, correct? Which I will. I think so. It's my dad's birthday, so I will
Oh,
always remember that. And
oh,
so,
that's cool.
but I think St. George is the patron saint of England. So I was disappointed to hear, first of all, that she's not feeling well, but
Yeah.
that I couldn't tell her that in person. So, Sandy, if you're hearing this, happy St. George's Day, and make it a good one. And I hope you're not feeling too bad on it.
All right. All right. Thank you. Very sweet. And also, it speaks to your ability to do your homework and to take an interest. So I'm honored that you were looking things up and making those connections. That was cool.
Well, you just never know.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, so we've talked about the podcast. In your job now, tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of an educator were you, and what did you like about teaching?
Well, of course, my current role is a digital learning coach, and so this is my third year in that job. And education was not my first career. I came into I've only been in education probably, and I was thinking about 14 years now, and had been in graphic design and advertising for about 10 to 12 years, about a good 10 years prior to that, and came in and decided to get my alternative certification. Had kind of always had the itch to teach.
Mm-hmm.
My sister's a teacher, and got my alternative certification in K through all the way up to 8. And I thought I was going to be a social studies. I love history, was going to teach social studies in middle school, and God had other plans. And lo and behold, I'm teaching third grade math and science, and did that for about 10 years. And four of that 10, I was doing like a STEM lab, Project Lead the Way in the lab. So I was able to teach. The beauty of that is I was able to teach kindergarten through 5th grade.
Yeah.
And then kind of went on from there, spent a year as an assistant principal, and then did a little more teaching and is back doing this now. But as far as teaching, my background is primarily in science and math.
Cool. I was an activity teacher as well, or you might call it elective activity specials. But I love that also, because if you do it long enough, you get to see those little bitty kindergartners turn into 5th graders and
yes. And if
humans.
anybody puts kindergarten anywhere on their resume as having taught, that's that's like a tour of duty.
Yes.
Because if you can do kindergarten, you come out and you can feel like you can do a lot of things, because I had never really worked a glue gun until I had to do with kindergarten. And the thing about glue guns are obviously very hot, but I've never seen a kindergartner laugh more than when the teacher glues a little fuzzy ball to their finger with a glue gun, and because you're helping them, because you can't let them. So you've got 30 kindergartners and you're trying to work that glue gun. And I've just seen the little kindergartners just belly laughing. And I'm trying not to scream or cry, because it's, and they're looking at you going, "Doesn't that hurt?" And I'm like, "It sure does," but it gives you appreciation from the development of a kindergartner all the way up to a 5th grader or an 8th grader, and you see the similarities and the differences.
Absolutely.
They're not all that different. Their size is a little bit different, but in a lot of ways they're very similar.
They are. Certainly are.
I'm thankful for that experience, because I thought, at 6 years in the classroom, you kind of think you've got some things figured out, and then you go in and you teach an activities, which is interesting in and of itself, an activity or elective, and then you go across 5 different grade levels. It humbles you and lets you know I've got a lot still to learn.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Helps you appreciate the whole child.
It really does, and there's kids now in my current position, because I concentrate on the middle schools. And what's interesting now is the kids that were kindergartners, 1st graders, 2nd graders, then I'm seeing now as middle schoolers. And you realize, you think you're a blip in their mind, and they remember you. A lot of them more than I would remember them, because I saw so many, but I remember those faces, and they remember you, and you realize, Joe Sanfilippo said this, 30-second interactions with people. And he said, that life, your interactions kind of happen in 30 seconds, and you can't pick and choose who's going to remember which 30-second. And those kids remember, and so you do realize positive, and if you're not careful, negative, those kids, you do have an impact on them, and they remember those things. And so it's been humbling to say, they did remember a lot of these things that you teach them, and hopefully had a positive impact.
Absolutely. Let's see. Looking at my notes here. So you moved into the more digital role, and so you're working with adults more now in the middle school, or
I would say primarily the role is working with teachers and staff, and so more the training and the teaching goes from teaching younger adults to children to adult learning. And so a lot of our focus in this department has been on on focusing on the needs of the adult learner, which have their own unique needs, as you well know. And our director is doing a doctoral study on adult learning, and so it really keeps it focused to us that when we're talking to adults, we need to be just as aware of their needs and how they learn as we would if we were talking to a group of students in 5th grade or 8th grade or
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
And it's helpful because we all talk about being lifelong learners
Hmm.
and learning all the time. And you really have to keep in mind that, just because they're teachers doesn't mean that they're any less, we need to pay any less attention to how we talk to them and how
Right.
we help them learn as we would anybody else. And so that's been very helpful. And just like going to an activity and teaching 5 different grade levels, this has broadened the whole teaching spectrum to a different kind of teaching. And I enjoy it because you can have those conversations, and where this is not an evaluative position,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's hard to get past too, because teachers are used to being evaluated.
Hmm.
And people that come in their classroom that are adults are usually there to what?
Yeah.
Evaluate.
Evaluate.
And
Judge, don't judge me.
right. And you know what? The proof is in the actions you take, because I can tell them all the time that I'm not here to evaluate, but what I actually do and how I interact with them is going to show them whether
Right.
or not I'm being truthful. And it's not that they think I'm not being truthful. I think they're so used to, you're going to have to show me, because I'm used to people saying one thing and doing another sometimes,
Yeah.
And so it's about, this position is about relationships. I think middle school teachers are different than elementary teachers, and I think they have a different level of prove it.
Yeah.
If
Right.
I
That's
tell them
true.
I'm going to end my PLC or professional development today 10 minutes early to give you time to get to your next, they appreciate that, but they'll also look at you kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
And so, I think it all boils down to this, Karen, that it's relationships. And whether you're in Sweden talking to
Hmm.
people, or you're in Temple, Texas, working with teachers in a classroom, it all boils down to how well you relate to other people and how much effort you put into building relationships.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. I recently did a unit with my English class, and um, digital learning. There's a lot of it here. I mean, Sweden is, I would say, pretty much advanced in the being one to one. It's not a thing. It's just expected, at least at the school I'm at. And so all the students have their computers, and some have iPads. We have MacBooks that the technology students use, and then most of the students have iPads. But we use Google tools, and uh, teaching them, there are things though that I've learned through my years of technology in the States, like things like hyperdocs. I know they're international and they use them in Europe, but when I introduce that to the students, sometimes it freaks them out a little bit. So you'll have a document with a lot of links, and I give them an assignment, and I say, you're going to make one of these. And the same thing happens with teachers, is at first they get scared, and then you have to, like you're saying, build them up a little bit, enough to try, and then show them that you trust them enough that it's okay to make the mistake, and then accept their first efforts. And I've come to realize this about myself as a teacher, is I want to always accept the first effort, even if it stinks, even if it's the worst. You accept it, because that way they trust you that, it's okay. I can try something and try something more difficult. So that's something that I've learned in introducing documents like HyperDocs or Explore boards or jam boards and things like that, things that they may have never seen before, but you kind of have to move in baby steps, I think, with them. But it pays off so much, because at the end, when I get their feedback, it's like, wow, no one's ever taught us like this before. So it just, makes me want to just jump out of the room,
It's a growth mindset. And, I like the way you put it, accept their first effort. And sometimes we're the worst about accepting our own first effort.
Yeah.
I know when, going back to talking about starting this podcast, I don't even know if I would want to go back and listen to the first couple of podcasts that I did, just because I'm not sure. I think I would be surprised at how far I've come, but then it had to start with that first podcast. I mean, that first effort. And, you're talking about not being afraid to make mistakes. I'm asking that question a lot on podcasts I'm doing right now for teachers. I think there is whether it's due to COVID, just being completely overwhelmed, there's a real fear with a lot of teachers right now of taking risk and making that mistake, just because they don't feel like they're going to be given the grace to do that. And sometimes the grace comes from themselves, and sometimes it comes from other people. But I think you hit on something that's a big part of this job, whether it's in Sweden, a digital job in Sweden, or here, is that getting people to believe in themselves by taking that first step and saying, you know what, failure is not just it's not just something that could happen. It's part of the process.
Right.
If you're not making some mistakes, then you're probably not learning as much as you could, and but I think we need to, that's something I'm really focusing on, is to really keep working with teachers that's where the relationship comes in. They're going to be more comfortable to try something new if they truly feel like, what do I have to lose? If I make a mistake, oh well, I'm going to tweak it and go from there. And they can do it, but it's a process of celebrating the process of learning. And you think it would be odd to celebrate a mistake, but sometimes the best things have come out of so-called mistakes.
Right. That is so cool. Yeah, it's one of these. I can't think of the word now. What paradigm? Not a paradigm. Paradox.
Yeah.
A paradox is that mistakes are good things.
Well, I mean, you look at how many things that were, quote, accidents or mistakes, turned out to be, groundbreaking.
Absolutely.
And you can look at all kinds of inventions, medicine, etc., that was intended for one thing, but came, the benefits came a completely different way.
That's right. Here's one.
Exactly. That's the one I probably use the most, a complete accident, but it's $1 billion, industry that everybody's got on their desk,
Yep.
But I think I always like using when we're talking about teachers and taking bite-size steps, and students, my biggest mistake as a teacher and as a student and as a learner sometimes is trying to do too much too fast. My eyes are bigger than I can process, but you try it anyway, and you keep making, you make the same mistake. But when I take things, and I think when people take things in bite-sized steps, it fulfills that. You can go, okay, you see the progress easier than if you try to do it too much. So I always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
That's true.
And it's true, because then you can look at students and teachers and take that bite size, and then you can diagnose what went right, what went wrong easier, and see the good. Sometimes if you're trying to do too much, you can't see the positive because it's shrouded in what seems like only mistakes or negatives.
Right. Absolutely.
I hope that made sense.
Yes, it did. It did. I followed you. Right with you.
Yeah.
So let's see. How about them Longhorns?
Which ones? Some of them were doing better. I went to a game.
I really want to know, because I haven't been the news.
Well,
they don't cover them here.
Oh, well, that's probably okay. Football team is trying to get better. They did not make a bowl game last year, but they're trying to get better. I went to a baseball game last night in Austin. Is kind of a birthday deal, and they won 20-1, so that was good.
Yeah.
And so they're ranked number 10, so they're doing pretty good. And the basketball team is getting better. So I'll just say this: the swim team continues to do well. And so sometimes I think I need season swim tickets. Because they're consistently, them and the track and women's basketball are doing extremely well. So
that's good.
I'm a Longhorn fan, no matter if they're playing tiddlywinks or
chess club
or poker. Depending on who they're playing, I'll stop and watch it.
Yeah.
But let's just say the football team is undefeated right now until they start. But they have to play Alabama in the fall. Which, yeah, say no more there.
Yeah, ouch.
Season.
We'll see how that goes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, man, who scheduled that one?
Yeah, really.
But no, it's just like being a true fan of anything. It's got its ups and downs and highs and lows, and right now there's some of all of that. But I'll take the baseball win and say currently really well. Yeah,
that's good. Oh, that's the benefit of having a very large athletic program, is that somebody's going to be doing well.
You hope so. I hope so. Yes, like I said, I may have to trade in for swim tickets, because they've won like 12 national titles and 3 in a row, and you're just going, I'm following the wrong sport. I don't know how to cheer at a swim meet, but
I think they do. I'm pretty sure they do. I've been
do.
in the parking lot outside going back and forth to class, and I could hear them screaming inside. So,
but it was a rough football season last year. And so, I had thought, well, maybe they need to take the football field and put the swimming pool in the
middle.
And I don't know if 100,000 people have ever watched a swim, but I said that would be crazy.
That would
be the loudest swim event ever. But no, I appreciate you asking, but it's you live and die by the Longhorns, and some days it's diamonds and some days it's coal.
That's true. So true.
Yeah.
John, I am so thankful that you decided to join us and me, and I want you to have the best end of the school year, and I appreciate you sharing some life experiences and some learning about tech and your podcast. And I'm going to put on the DL over here. And I realized now that I look at that link, no one's going to type that link in. I should have shortened that one.
Well, you can find on the DL and in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. It's on like 8 different platforms.
Okay. All right. Well, I will put the link in there and then also shorten it for those that need to.
No problem. But we're always, if anybody's listening and wants to be a guest, put that out there. We're willing to talk to anybody that wants to talk education and even topics that maybe aren't directly about education but are relevant to the people in education. Definitely want to do that.
That would
Uh,
be cool. You know what we should do? We should collaborate and do a panel.
I would
Get
love that.
a couple more, and then we could all four just talk about education and ed tech and podcasting. Maybe
Yeah, I would love to do that.
that would be fun.
I think there's so many good people in education, and it's a tough time in many respects due to COVID and the things that come out of that. And I want people to hear as many positive voices as they can, because as you know, the negative can sometimes
Yeah.
drown out the positive, and we got to keep the good stuff and the good news out there, because there's far more good people in this
Yeah.
field and
Yeah.
doing great things in Temple, Texas, and around the country and around the world, and teaching over in Sweden. And and I think it's a podcast platform allows us the opportunity to get that word out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a great way to end this podcast. And for those that are listeners of Chat with Sandy and Karen, we hope that you continue and share. And we're found also on all podcast platforms. And we thank you for watching. And I hope that you all have a good day, and we will see you soon.
Happy St. George's Day.
Thank you. And you too. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.